Hey there! So today we'll be looking at price elasticity in the supply. So what is price elasticity in supply? So first of all, we need to narrow this down into saying, okay, so we are looking at a supply curve. So what is a supply curve? As we have looked before, a supply curve is basically you've got the same graphs as you always have, but this time you have a price and quantity here. And as we know before, we're looking at it before, that a supply curve goes always to a positive correlation, so it always goes upwards, which this means this is supply. Price elasticity in supply would mean that you have now another variable that has come to play, and its slope or its line is much steeper or much less steeper, so towards the x-axis or towards the y-axis. Whatever we get from this, so as we all know, we've done math, is that the equation of this line is y equals mx plus b, right? But however, in economics, it's going to be ES, which means elasticity of supply, which equals to the m, so whatever the slope is, which you'll have to calculate. And to calculate slope, you need to look at run over rise. All of you in sciences have done rise over run, because rise over run meant that your x-axis was your independent variable. In economics, it's the opposite way around. Your y-axis is the independent variable, so that way your equation also changes, becomes run over rise rather than rise over run. So m is equals to q over p, and then x is whatever you take a point from your curve, plus b is often not used, but it's basically to state wherever your curve starts from. So what is the starting point, or wherever it intercepts the x or the y-axis. So wherever it intercepts the x-axis. So let's take an example. So the graph I drew here, and let's say this is price in dollars, and the quantity of boxes of chocolate. Simple, we go easy. 1 box, 2 box, and so on. Here you got $10, $20, $30, and so on. Goes up, keeps going. Anyhow, so our original graph, so S1, says that for $1 we are getting, let's say, 1 box, which is really cheap. So 1 over 1. Let's put this into the equation, which means ES equals to 1 over 1, which means 1 over 1, as we've done quantity over price, 1 over 1 plus x. So you can plot it to any point on this line. So we can take any point from the line and implement. So let's take 2, and so 1 times 2 equals to 2, because 1 divided by 1 equals to 1. This equals to 1, and 1 times 2 equals to 2. So that's the elasticity. As we've seen, that if elasticity is above 1, it's elastic, and it's below 1, it's inelastic. So right now we have faced a elasticity. So let's take this and say elasticity. Now let's look at the next one, because for this whole example we'll be using this initial curve S1 because S1 is the initial curve where your market value was started from, and then it got either inelastic or elastic or inelastic. So it either became elastic, went towards the x-axis, or away from the x-axis towards the y-axis and became inelastic. So let's take an example of it being inelastic. So we'll look at this one. We'll look at this graph, this curve, and let's say you were making, so for that much you were getting $1 for 1 box for $20. So you were getting 1 box of chocolate for $20. Alright, so now let's put it into the equation, and we get ES equals to $1 for 20, so 1 over 20, because quantity first, so 1 box for $20 times any point from the x-axis, and I'm gonna go for 1.5, or hell, let's even go for 2, wherever it goes to. Let's go for 2. So when we put it to 2, 1 over 20 would mean, so 1 over 10 means 10, 1 over 20 would be 5. 5 times 0.5 because 1 over 20, so 0.05 times 2, which gives us 0.1. As you see, as I told before, that price inelasticity happens when it's between 0 and 1, and our value here is 0.1, which means it's inelastic. So here is inelastic. So here is a small example or a small explanation of what is price inelasticity and elasticity of a supply curve. Alright, so now that we have a better understanding of how price elasticity and inelasticity of supply works, let's look at how primary commodities and manufacture works and how their elasticity in supply works. So before we get into that, here's a picture of some determinants of supply. Here we're looking at two different graphs. So we're going to look at a primary commodity and a manufacturing good. A primary commodity is more inelastic because, as you can see, the slope is steeper. That's because, if you think about it, coffee beans determinant is weather or time. Because, for example, if you're in a country like Ethiopia where droughts are very common, coffee beans have to be very limited. You need to be lucky, all right? You need to have that specific time of, like, you can make coffee beans during this time of year. Other than that, you can't make it. So your price is really high for the quantity you get. So let's say for price 1, all right? So for price 1, P1, you're getting Q1, and for P2, you're getting Q2, okay? And the way you can tell that commodity is inelastic is because the change in price is greater than the change in quantity. As you can see here, you're getting your price and change is greater than the change in quantity, which means it's more inelastic. You have to wait for that time of the year. Businesses have to wait and cannot make coffee beans anytime. What if there's a drought? Then their supply is decreased, and well, they're not putting that much price into it. As for manufacturers, for example, now we'll be looking at coffee capsule as a manufacturing company. They're more elastic because it doesn't matter for them. Let's say you're looking for a coffee capsule company in America, so in the United States, and it does not matter where they get the coffee beans from because they've got a variety of places, such as they got the Ethiopia, Kenya. They can get from different countries, and they can manufacture it at any time they want. They don't have an issue like coffee bean companies. And as you see, their slope is less steeper as to a commodity. All right, and you can see that so an increase in price, we're getting a greater quantity. That's the best. That's really good about manufacturing good. You can see that in primary good, the greater your price was, the smaller your quantity was. So increased change, so the size of the increased change in P1 and P2 was not as big as quantity 1 and quantity 2 as from primary commodity. Elastic.
Okay, so to make you guys understand the whole topic a bit more clearly, I'm gonna give you guys some examples. But here's the catch. Our econ teacher told us to incorporate some sort of elastic or some sort of rubber band in the video. So I'm gonna use this. This is my mom's hairband, by the way. I'm gonna use this to help you guys visualize what I'm trying to say, so you guys can understand the whole topic a little bit more clearly. Cool? Let's get into it. Okay, so we got elastic and we got non-elastic. Alright, so where do we start? One sec. Okay, cool. Alright, so where do I start? Let's start with elastic. Okay, so what exactly is elastic? Well, it's simple. Let's take black hoodies, for example. You can get black hoodies from as low as H&M or as high as Porsche Design or Givenchy or Gucci. The point is, basically, you can get the same thing, but from a very low price to a very high price, and there's so many retailers and so many suppliers. So, same thing, so many suppliers, and you have so many options at different price ranges. Cool? But let's go back to non-elastic. Let's say something rare, for example, roses or flowers. For the thing with flowers or roses is that they take time to grow, and they grow at very specific places at specific times. So the thing is, you don't really have much options of suppliers. So the supply they have is all you get. and the price they set it is all you get. So no matter how much ever you want to try to pull, you're gonna get the same person who's gonna sell it, and you don't have much options and the same price. That's it. It's non-elastic. It's not flexible. Literally, you got one person or one company. I'm trying to make this simple, but like in real life, it's not one person, one company. But like the point is, usually it's the one main thing, and it's not elastic, it's not flexible. You don't get different price ranges or different options, like a different quality or different suppliers. It's just that.
Let's look at some examples of inelasticity in the real world. As you can see from an inelasticity supply graph, even though the price increases, the supply doesn't actually increase that much. This is usually due to some other factors, such as in nuclear reactors. Due to the amount of physical price and labor involved in making nuclear reactors, elastic supply, well, their graphs are a lot more different. They're a lot flatter, because as the price increases, the supply reacts a lot more. It increases by a substantial amount more than the price does. This is usually found in other examples, like, for example, taxis, where anyone can really need a supply to be a taxi driver for example, Uber. At any